This is a list of all the mountains in Europe with ultra-prominent peaks with topographic prominence greater than 1,500 meters or 4,900 feet. The column called denotes the highest elevation to which one must descend from a peak in order to reach peaks with higher elevations. Note that the elevation of any peak is the sum of its prominence in col. The above European top 10 list excludes peaks on lands and islands that are part of European countries but are outside or on the limits of the European subcontinent in its tectonic and geographic boundaries, like Tide, with prominence of 3718 m, Tenerife Island, Spain, Beluga Peak of the Altai Mountains in Russia, with prominence of 3343 m, and Piton de Neige, with prominence of 3069 m, Réunion, France. For ease of reference, the complete list below is divided into sections. Islands in the Atlantic, like Azores and Iceland, the Arctic archipelagos of Jan Mayen, Svalbard, and Novaya Zemlya, Mediterranean Sicily and the other Mediterranean islands, territories of European countries, have also been included as sections, with the exception of Greenland, and are taken into account for the top 10 list, although being somehow on the European boundaries. Mount Etna active volcano is somehow on, or just outside the boundaries of the Eurasian plate, resting on the subduction boundary where the African tectonic plate is being pushed under the Eurasian plate, but geographically is part of Europe, and is also included in the top 10 list. The sections include peaks on the African plate, the Canary Islands and Madeira, and some peaks on or just outside the European boundaries located in the Caucasus Mountains, European Russia and the Caucasus states, and the Ural Mountains, both forming the geographic boundaries between the Europe and Asia, but those last mentioned aren't included in the top 10 list. Mount Narodnaya, the highest peak in the Ural Mountains, is on the Mayen watershed ridge, so on the limits of Europe, and cannot be considered a strictly European mountain and peak. Mount Elbrus is a dormant stratovolcano, forming part of the Caucasus Mountains, and geographically it is laying entirely in Europe and Russia, 20 kilometers 12 miles north of the main ridge and watershed of the Greater Caucasus, considered as the one that is forming the limits of Europe, that also forms great part of the length of the border between Russia and Georgia. Mount Bazarduzu, also in the Caucasus, has a prominence of 2,454 meters, but is located on the limit between Europe and Asia, on the border between Russia and Azerbaijan, so it cannot be considered a strictly European mountain and peak. The boundary between Europe and Asia is following the main ridge of the Caucasus Mountains, also forming most of the border between Russia and Georgia. From the above listed 8 peaks, 4, Mount Elbrus, Dykh Dialtideg, Gorodot Alashutkalmezer, are entirely in Europe, and 4 are on the border itself and so are both in Europe and Asia. List of the highest European ultra-prominent peaks, elevation above 2,900 m and prominence above 1,500 m.